Let's talk about more able students. Hi, my name is Dr. Ken Beatty, and I'm a professor of education and a textbook writer. In these talks, we've already defined the mixed ability classroom, looking at how there are some students who are more able and some who are less able, while most students are in between. We've also defined 7 characteristics or factors that influence whether a student is more able or less able. Finally, in the second talk, we discussed these ideas about students who are less able and some activities we could use to engage them more, as well as looking at some of the physiological and psychological issues that affect them. In this talk, what we want to discuss are the problems presented by more able students. Most of us think, more able students? They're no problem. They're my best students in the class. But even the best students can present problems if they become bored. There's often 3 reactions from students who become bored. Let's talk about them one at a time. First, students will sometimes say, partway through a lesson, "Oh, teacher, I've already learned this." Or even expand that and say, "Teacher, we've already learned this." There's a way to deal with this, but you have to do it first. And that is to, at the beginning of the class, find out what students know, what they don't know, and what they think they know, but which is wrong. So if you were teaching a unit, say something about sports, you might say, "All right, okay, so what do you know about hockey?" And they would say, "Oh, well, I know that hockey is played on ice." And some other students would say, "Well, there's also hockey which is played on grass." Okay, so you're finding out what students know, and when you do that, the students are helping to teach each other new information. And then you find out things that they don't know. You say, "Well, what is the scoring system used in field hockey or in ice hockey?" And maybe some students will know and some students will not. Then you find out what they think they know, but which might be wrong. Now, students will always have ideas, but they might have some incorrect ideas. They might think about something and have a misconception about something. They might say, "Yes, hockey is only played by men." That's not true. There are many women's teams playing hockey as well. So by asking questions about what students know, what they don't know, and then finding out what they think they know, but they're wrong about, you set the area that you should be concentrating on in your lessons. There's no point repeating information that has already been covered. You can go ahead and move forwards and do something else. The second point is when a student says that they are not interested in a topic and they are just simply tuned out. Actually, often they won't even say that. They'll just tune out. They'll just look bored, their eyes will glaze over, and they'll stop listening because they think it is too simple for them. Too easy for them. They could write the test and get an A without paying attention. This is also a problem in a classroom, but it needs to be dealt with in a different way. In this case, you need to find ways to engage the students in somehow. And an excellent way to do this is to ask the students to become the teachers. Look ahead in your curriculum. Look ahead to things that students could teach the rest of the class. Either a small group of the students or the entire class. It doesn't have to be a whole lesson. It can just be a very small thing, but something which requires that advanced, more able student to do some preparation. If they go ahead and do this, they're more engaged and they can see the difficulties in the information and then present it to the students in ways that helps them learn a lot more, but also maybe communicates to them the difficulty that other students might face. The third problem that we sometimes face is when students are bored and they decide to act out in some way. In this case, they become disruptive. And often this is the point at which you want to give them some special assignment. Maybe you are doing something that is boring to them. It's not so interesting, but it has to be done. Maybe you're really trying to help the rest of the classroom to catch up. The best thing to do is to give those students a special assignment that is somehow related to your topic, but expands it in some way. So again, if we were talking about sports, you might say, all right, I want you to take a different sport, a new sport, and add something else. Come back and show us something that's not in the book. We want you to investigate sumo wrestling or some other sport that maybe students are not so familiar with. Maybe it's a sport that they're particularly interested in. But in doing this, you are still getting them to deal with the content, with the vocabulary, with the main themes of the lesson, but you're giving them a special assignment that will keep them busy while you work with the rest of the students. Let's look at a task and figure out how we can make it more challenging for the more able student. I'm going to look at a task from Move It, Student Book 2. In this task, the focus is on grammar. It's getting students to use the words must and mustn't. To do this, the book features a series of crossed circles indicating things that you cannot do or you must not do. In this task, the students need to look at the picture and then write sentences. Of course, the simplest thing for them to do is also to say the sentences, so they can use all four skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But what else can we do to make it more challenging, maybe even as an extra activity for those more able students? I'm going to share with you 6 ideas. Let's start off with 1. First, challenge the students to go find more examples of these crossed circle symbols. They can do it in class or outside of class. They can go to the library. If it's a homework assignment, they can do it on the street. There's lots and lots of these symbols around. When they see the symbols, they can either draw them or they could use their phones to take little photographs of them and bring them back to class. Then, when they come back to class, they can do a presentation and share them with everyone. 2. Students can create a skit about using these symbols or having these symbols up on the wall. Maybe they can draw them up on the wall and have one hapless character who comes in and makes all the mistakes while somebody else points at each one as he makes each mistake. 3. Ask students to write rules for the things they must do and mustn't do to be a good student. These could include little things like studying and not watching TV at the same time. With these, they can then again present it to the rest of the class as an example of something they have done outside. 4. You can ask the more able students to play a game of charades. So in this way, they indicate through acting what the symbols mean, while the rest of the class has to guess. Of course, it's more helpful to have many symbols like this. So not only are they the common ones about don't walk here or no entry, but also things like no fishing. 5. Ask students to personalize their signs, making things that are only for them or perhaps for other students in the classroom. For example, if someone has a nut allergy or an allergy to anything else, they can make the little crossed symbol and use it to indicate that. 6th, ask students to use a flowchart or some other kind of graphic organizer to put the different kinds of cross symbols into categories. This involves them thinking more deeply about the meaning of each one and how they relate together. For example, they might find several to do with food and several other ones to do with transportation. they can all go into a flow chart, and by putting them into a flow chart or some other kind of graphic organizer, it becomes more memorable. Of course, afterwards, this can be shared with the class. So in each case, the students are doing something in which they are personally challenged, but that they are also coming back to the classroom and enhancing the classroom through their activities. If more able students already know the basic content, don't make them sit there and just listen to it again. Find other activities to get them engaged and involved in helping out. In the fourth talk, we're going to discuss the whole idea of the mixed ability classroom. Is it a good idea? Well, in fact, it is. I think that it can be a very rich environment, and I'm going to show you some practical techniques about how you can get students working together so that everybody learns.